In this video, I'm going to go through 5, possibly 6 powerful reasons when taken through a process of elimination has led me to the firm belief and probably the obvious conclusion that the Newcastle United owners are left with only a couple of options, and that is to either expand St James's Park or to rebuild it where it sits. And that's what I'm going to discuss today and how I think they're going to do it. It's coming up. Welcome back, it's Eddie here from Tyneside Life, and this is probably going to be my final video number 7 in this series of videos where I've been looking at St James's Park, its possible expansion, rebuild or relocation. And I'd say that this is probably where I'm going to put my sword into the ground. This is the hill I'm going to die on in terms of what I think is going to happen. I hope you have found the videos I've done in this collection interesting and informative. They haven't been based on what somebody else has said in a newspaper. I've done my own investigation. I've made my own inquiries, carried out my own research to help bring you the facts and evidence of this very complicated series. And who would have thought we'd be stood here in 2024 looking at the stadium now, which might either in a few years' time be gone or look completely different to what it does now. When you go back to the very early beginnings of our club, a Stanley FC in 1881, who then changed their name to Newcastle East End, and when Newcastle West End, who were playing at St James's Park, financially collapsed and folded early 1892, Newcastle East End moved in and began playing at St James's Park. 6 months later, Newcastle East End changed its name to Newcastle United, and the rest is history. Anyway, without any further ado, let's get into these 5 or 6 reasons and factors when taken through a process of elimination has certainly taken me to the obvious conclusion, the belief that Newcastle are going to either expand or rebuild St James's Park, roughly where it sits now. And the first one is, can Newcastle United build a new stadium outside of the city centre? Well, if you go back a couple of years, the government released a paper because they had this government-led review. It took a couple of years into football clubs, and in order to how to protect clubs, protect their heritage assets, to put fans at the forefront of decision making with the clubs, to stop unscrupulous owners from doing whatever they want, and for example changing shirt colours or badge names and moving stadium locations. And one of the factors that came out of that was that in order for a club now to move a stadium, relocate outside of where it currently sits for us in the city centre, by law, our club owners would need majority fan approval. Now, we had a recent fan survey 3 or 4 months back. I'm absolutely certain that the majority of Newcastle fans didn't give their blessing in that survey to move out of the city centre. So number 1, if you're thinking about Gosforth Park, the racecourse, the Newburn Brownfield site, the HMRC land, which I mistakenly covered a couple of years ago, it ain't happening because you're not going to get majority fan approval. Number 2, the second reason is, if you come into the city centre now, one area that's been an area of popular discussion is the arena site land and neighbouring land where a new stadium could have been built there. I've just recently covered that in 2 separate videos. Those are not speculation videos where I'm trying to shout my opinion louder than somebody else's. Those videos are packed with facts and support and evidence which overwhelmingly tells the story that Newcastle aren't interested in the land. That's official, and building by Homes England has already begun in terms of the preparatory stage down there. So for a whole host of reasons, the arena land just ain't happening. Number 3, another popular area discussed among some fans is the area of the Town Moor and some of the moors around it, including Hunters Moor and Nuns Moor. I covered this in video number 2 to some great amount of detail in terms of the history of the land, its conservation, the heritage, the history, the framing, the council. It's all very complicated. The upshot is that the freemen, who have grazing rights over the land, have been protecting that land for hundreds of years from construction. It is now a huge area of land, including Nuns, including where the golf course is now, huge conservation and biodiversity interest. There are huge projects going on the town moors in relation to planting trees and increasing the native wildlife and biodiversity. Those lands are untouchable. So nobody, in terms of a stadium, will be going anywhere near that. Number 4, and that's the Castle Leazes plan. If you go back to 1997, Sir John Hall had a plan to build a stadium here where I'm stood right now on Castle Leazes, which encroached into Leazes Park. It was going to be a 55,000 seater stadium. That idea, the possibility of reigniting it, has really pricked my interest. I covered it quite thoroughly in video number 3, and I've been excited about the idea of building a stadium here, which would be bigger than that, obviously, because it could crack on building it, still play at St James's Park, move into this one, top job, no problems at all. However, I've revisited this area after my investigations that I did at the arena and noticed that I'd missed a couple of really important factors regarding this. So behind me there, you can see some tower blocks there. That's Castle Leazes halls of residence for Newcastle University. There's 17 blocks plus a management block which is set in the middle there. And if you look at the old diagram from 1997 with the old stadium plan, the stadium would have been planted there quite deliberately in that position as far south, I believe, as it could possibly go, because I'm quite certain they didn't want to go into Leazes Park because of protests, etc. And they would have needed to do that to eliminate any blocking of the light to these blocks behind us here. So it was positioned there quite deliberately. Why is it a problem now? Well, if we were to build a new stadium here, it's going to be a bit bigger than the old 55,000 seater stadium. And again, I use Spurs' stadium as an example for rough dimensions, and I've placed it on the diagram so you get a bit of an idea. And of course, because it's bigger, because there's going to be better facilities, wider concourses, etc., it's going to be longer and broader. And it's my firm belief that if you build a bigger stadium here than the one planned in 97, it is going to impinge on the light on those blocks. That's going to cause a huge problem. It gets worse. So I've done some digging as well, and starting this summer, those blocks are being demolished because Newcastle University are now working in partnership with Unite Students, the development company that builds student accommodation blocks around the country, to put together a £250 million plan that's starting this summer to replace those blocks because they were built in 1969. They're not fit for purpose anymore. They have to be replaced. We've got a growing student accommodation. Because we've got more students now than we have accommodation, it's putting the rents up, and it's creating all sorts of economic problems for students moving here, and it's a huge target of Newcastle City Council to bring in more students. So that's why they're building brand new blocks just there. Now, I don't think you need to be an architect or a town planner or a developer to appreciate the additional complications that would make if Newcastle United were to try and build a stadium on this land. For me personally, I was excited about it. Now I'm not. Number 5, if you've got to this point of the video and have fully absorbed everything I've been talking about and understand all the limitations and complications of this land and still believe we could build a brand new stadium here inside Leazes Park, where the Victorian Terrace is here now, I don't know what else to say to you, because I can say categorically in this Grade 2 listed park that has conservation, environmental and heritage protections that nothing is going to be built inside Leazes Park in its entirety. Yeah, let's do a 6th, but before I come to that, let's have a very quick recap. Number 1, our club owners can't build outside the city centre without majority fan approval. Number 2, the arena site is a non-starter for several significant reasons. Number 3, same goes with the town moor and the surrounding moors as well. Number 4, I would hate to try and say that it's impossible to build on Castle Leazes, but my view is that it seems really, really implausible. And number 5, nowhere in a million years is a stadium in its entirety going to be built on the Victorian Terrace and in Leazes Park here. So number 6, we're going to go back to Marion Williams. If you know from a previous video, Marion is a local councillor. She also sits on the Newcastle City Council Planning Committee. She's a season ticket holder at Newcastle United. She lives in Leazes Terrace. She's also a chair of the Friends of Leazes Conservation Group. And if that's not all, she is now the newly appointed vice chair of the Newcastle United Fan Advisory Board. Love her or hate her, she's a woman in the know, and she put an idea to me a few months ago when I bumped into her here at St James's Park about stadium capacity. and relocation. And she said something which I hadn't considered before, and that's the argument of, in terms of capacity, optimising capacity versus maximising capacity. And they're two completely different business models, as I'll briefly explain. And have you ever thought why clubs like Arsenal and Man City and Liverpool and Spurs haven't taken the opportunity to build past the capacities that they currently have, which is seems to be a bit of a sweet spot between 60 and 62,000. Now, there's a strong argument that maximising capacity, which is a lot of Newcastle fans think we might do, build an 80,000 seater stadium because we'd sell all the season tickets. But that's actually not where the majority of money would come from. And optimising capacity by having a smaller capacity means you have more control over ticketing prices. It means you always have demand. It means you have more opportunity to build corporate and hospitality facilities where there's a lot more money involved. And the whole business idea of optimising is just, it's future-proof as well, in case the club goes through some poor seasons and changes of hands. So this idea that we're going to build an 80,000 seater stadium or thereabouts, I think is just nonsense. The maths just doesn't add up. It's not where the main source of revenue is really going to come from. That's going to come from other commercial outlets and sponsorships, and using and utilising the stadium for other facilities, other sports, other entertainment branches. So through a process of elimination, it certainly led me to this point, and through any meaningful way in any adult conversation, that the only option that I can see to the club is to either expand currently St James's Park as it is now, or to rebuild it. And that's what I'm going to cover now. So, what do I think is going to happen? Well, it's clear that Newcastle City Council are on record as saying they would love the stadium to stay there. Our club owners are on record, including Darren Eales recently, who said they want to remain here. And it's my belief that the majority of Newcastle fans probably want to stay here. I'm going to cover expansion very quickly, because I was of the idea initially that they would put another tier on top of the Gallagher end, build it over the road into Strawberry Place once the fan zone is gone, and get another 5, 6, 7,000 seats in there. I'm no longer of that opinion, and I think Newcastle United owners really want a brand new stadium with super world-class facilities. And if you look at Darren Eales, his experience with Atlanta FC and their stadium, the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Helen and I went there in the summer series and had the pleasure of going to that stadium to see Newcastle United play Chelsea, and oh my word, what a stadium. Comparing the Mercedes-Benz Stadium to St James's Park is like comparing St James's Park to Gated Stadium. I hate to say it, I mean, the location is amazing, the size is amazing, but as a structure and in terms of facilities, St James's Park is crap, utterly crap. The facilities, the concourses are too narrow, there aren't enough facilities inside, you have to queue, massive queues for food and drink and beverages and toilets. It's just awful. When you've been to world-class stadiums like I have over the past 12 months, you'll see that I think Newcastle United owners really want to knock this down and rebuild it. Now, we all know we have Populous looking at this, the company that looked into building Spurs' stadium, world-class architects and stadium developers trying to work out this conundrum. And if you read what they've been saying and follow some of the quotes, I think they've already hinted at what's going to happen. They talk about a stadium that might look something similar to the Aviva Stadium in Dublin, a bowl-shaped stadium with possibly steep sides, with one very short side where Leazes Terrace is. That's not going to be moving or getting demolished, but then come up like a giant Yorkshire pudding. Check out the Aviva Stadium at Dublin, you'll see what I mean. That's a 52,000 seater stadium, but I'm sure they'll be able to build and develop much steeper walls for the capacity inside. And if they're going to knock down St James's Park, either in stages or all together, and for us to be relocated for a couple of years, for example, Gated Stadium, and put temporary stands up, I don't know. Once it's knocked down, they can move the footprint of the ground, and the only scope for them to do that is to bring the stadium forward, I'm guessing about 30 to 40 metres, which is about 10 metres beyond that path just there. That means bringing the whole stadium up means they can heighten the Gallagher end of the stadium without encroaching onto the road, and certainly not into Strawberry Place. You've got a brand new footprint, which is more or less where it is now. You can build those high-sided bowl-shaped stands with a shorter one in front of Leazes Terrace. This, of course, is all on the proviso that they can get the necessary permissions to encroach the stadium into Leazes Park by roughly 20 metres or so. And none of this, even if it goes ahead, isn't going to start until after the Euros 2028. So whatever happens, whichever way they do it, we're in for a long wait. And the last point I just want to cover is in regards to Leazes Terrace, because I read quite often from individuals who claim that it's happened quite a few times before where a listed building has been moved to another location. Can I just categorically state a grade 1 listed building like that one has never, ever been moved in England, ever in history. And this one isn't going to be moved. Our history and heritage is not going to be compromised to accommodate a football stadium. I can absolutely guarantee it. This is where I'm planting my sword. This is the hill that I'm going to die on. This is my firm belief, having researched all of these different ideas and lands, that I think is going to happen with St James's Park. So I hope you found it interesting. Drop your comments below. I'd be interested to hear them. That should be my last of the series in relation to St James's Park, unless something develops. And I'm looking forward to getting to doing videos now on other areas of Tyneside, which I think you're going to find really interesting. So anyway, that's it from me for the time being, and I'll catch you next time.